Hi, everybody. It's Mary again. I thought it would be a good idea to review the definition for empathy before we get started. I'm pretty excited to be with you again today. I have a really fun story to share with you, and I think it's going to inspire some really wonderful writing in you too. So I'm excited to see what happens. But first, I thought we better just kind of rethink, reimagine the definition for empathy, and maybe even um, review the hand motions to it. So, are you ready? Okay. So, empathy is imagining what another's life is like. What another's life is like. Empathy is imagining what another sees, thinks, and feels. And I wanted to add one more step in this because empathy, for me anyway, isn't just about um, imagining what another's life is like. It's also once we imagine what another might be thinking or feeling, we might want to act, to do something or say something with kindness and what's called compassion. It's compassion is just kind of feeling what the other is feeling. It's a lot like empathy. So, so part of empathy for me is not just having that, imagining that feeling, but actually acting out of that feeling. If somebody, a friend of mine, for instance, is sad, I might want to act with telling them how, how I appreciate them, or just being with them can be an important act of kindness. So let's remember that that action is also part of empathy, the action of kindness, being kind to the other. So I'd like to share an example of empathy from my own life. This is a picture of me and my grandson, Milo, who is now 8 years old. This was a couple of years ago. And just recently, a couple of weeks ago, Milo and I were sitting out on my front porch, and he was playing in the sandbox with his little sister, Zora. And there was a party going on across the street. And it was like the kids across the street had some friends over. I think maybe it might have been a birthday party. And they were just having a great time. There was squealing and sounded like people were chasing each other and fun games. And just a whole lot of fun was happening. And Milo, because of COVID and all the precautions to stay safe and everything, like I think a lot of you, he hasn't had a lot of time to play with friends for a number of months. And I know that he's missing that. And so he was listening to all this fun happening across the street. And he said, wow, they sound like they're having a lot of fun. But the way he said it, I could hear and I could imagine using empathy that he was feeling sad that he wasn't able to go over there and play with them because of being safe, right? So I used my empathy to imagine what he was feeling. Was hearing what he was saying and the way he was saying it. And so I decided to act with empathy, with kindness and compassion. It was natural for me. I wanted him to feel better, right? When we have friends who are sad, we want them to feel better. So I got up and I went over and I started playing in the sandbox with him. And we made up this really great game of, one closing their eyes and the other burying these little toys in the sand and trying to figure out where it was. It was simple, but it was fun. And we wound up, having a lot of fun together. But that act of kindness and compassion came from my imagining what Milo was feeling. And then I acted with that kindness. Now, the thing is that I had fun too. That's what happens with empathy. Oh my gosh, when we use our empathy with a friend or a sister or brother or even a mom or a dad or a neighbor, when we use our empathy and we reach out in kindness, then we wind up feeling good too. So it's a two-way thing. And empathy is particularly important. It's a real superpower for friendship. And I know we've talked about that before, but I'm going to read a story today that shows how empathy can actually make a friend, which is a really special part of what empathy can do. So let's get to the book. So today's story is called Leonardo, the Terrible Monster. And what I would like as we read, I'd like to invite you to use empathy. Remember how we talked about we use empathy as readers? We use our empathy, our power of empathy, to imagine what the characters might be thinking and feeling. Well, so let's do that as I read. We're going to use our empathy power to imagine what the characters are feeling and thinking. But we're also going to be looking through the lens of empathy to see when empathy happens in the story. This is really a story about friendship, but it doesn't begin that way. It looks like something entirely different. So let's, as readers, look to see when empathy actually starts happening in the story as well. Okay, so we're going to read for empathy. We're going to imagine what the characters are thinking and feeling. We're also going to look for it in the story to see when a character or characters might be using empathy. Okay, here we go. So Leonardo was a terrible monster. He couldn't scare anyone. He didn't have 1,642 teeth like Tony. Look at all those teeth. He wasn't big like Eleanor. Eleanor couldn't even fit on the page. She was so big. And he wasn't just plain weird like Hector. Leonardo tried very hard to be scary, but he just wasn't. I wonder if we can tell using our reader empathy. And as we look at the words and we look at the pictures, can you tell? Can you use your empathy to tell what Leonardo is feeling? I think he's tried really hard, but he looks like he's sad, maybe even frustrated. One day, Leonardo had an idea. He would find the most scaredy cat kid in the whole world and scare the tuna salad out of him. You can tell by the pictures and using empathy that he looks really happy and like he's got a great idea. He's excited about it. Leonardo researched until he found the perfect candidate. Sam. I wonder, looking at this picture, if you can use your empathy to imagine what Sam is feeling at this moment. Leonardo snuck up on the poor, unsuspecting boy. Let's see if I can, there we go. You can see that. And the monster gave it all he had. until the little boy cried. "Yes," cheered Leonardo. "I did it. I finally scared the tuna salad out of someone." Boy, two very different pictures here. One of Sam and one of Leonardo. And it looks like they're feeling very different than the other. "No, you didn't," snapped Sam. "Oh, yeah," replied Leonardo. "Then why are you crying?" Oh, that's interesting. That doesn't feel like empathy to me. Leonardo's not using empathy, at least not yet. I still haven't seen empathy in the story, but well, Sam had a few things to say. "My mean big brother stole my action figure right out of my hands while I was still playing with it. And then he broke it on purpose. And it was my favorite toy. And I tried to fix it, but I couldn't. And I got so mad, I kicked the table and I stubbed my toe on the same foot that I hurt last month when I accidentally slipped in the bathtub after I got soap in my eyes trying to wash out the bird poo that my brother's cockatoo pooped on my head. And I don't have any friends and my tummy hurts." Wow. I think as I look at Leonardo, that there might be empathy starting in the story. That's why. So Sam told Leonardo why he was feeling the way he was and what he was feeling, which helped Leonardo begin to understand Sam. Then Leonardo made a very big decision. I wonder what that was. What do you think? What do you think Leonardo's going to do? He's thinking. Can we imagine what the character is thinking? It's okay. Instead of being a terrible monster, he would become a wonderful friend. That was the big decision that Leonardo made. And look what's happening here, you guys. Leonardo felt empathy for Sam, and he acted in kindness by giving him a hug and saying, "It's okay." And look what happened. Empathy happened and friendship began. Pretty cool, huh? But that didn't mean that he couldn't try to scare his friend every now and then. Boom. So that's a story about friendship and how empathy can make a friend. Just simply by being there, imagining what the other is feeling. The other, Sam, helped out by telling Leonardo what he was thinking and feeling and why he was sad and frustrated and angry and all of those feelings going on all at once. Leonardo listened, felt empathy, and then acted and kindness by giving Sam a hug and saying, "It's okay." And a friendship was born. That's pretty powerful stuff. And you know what, my friends? That happens every day. And it's the power of empathy to make a friend. The power of empathy also to read a story and imagine these lives, imagine what these characters' lives are like. It's pretty cool. And the writer, Mo Willem, has done an amazing job at helping us understand these characters and to imagine their lives and what happened with each other and how friendship was born. So we're going to do the same thing today. We're going to, as writers, actually write down some feelings that might help our readers understand what's going on with us. So as we get ready to do some writing today, I wanted to look again at this part of the book. Trying to get a good look at that. There we go. And do you see how both pages are filled with words? And Sam is just telling Leonardo about what kind of trouble he had with his big brother and all the details of the action figure and how his brother broke it on purpose, and then he was so mad he kicked the table and he stubbed his toe that had already been hurt by slipping in the tub, and he went on and offered these amazing details in his description of what happened and why he was feeling so down when Leonardo met him, that he really helped Leonardo, as we said, understand what he was feeling. And so Leonardo could empathize with him. So today we're going to model what this author has done by describing a day, a time when we were sad or mad or frustrated or angry, or maybe all of those things, and write about it in as much detail as we possibly can and fill up the page as much as we possibly can in describing that time and telling that story of what happened to us at that time. Okay? So here is a wonderful example that this writer is offering us of an experience that she had where she didn't have such a good night one night. And offer this as an example of something, you might do. One night I was playing with a wobble bobble and I jumped on the wobble bobble and I hit my chin on the hardwood floor, and on the bottom of my chin, the skin split open. I had to go to the emergency room and got stitches. So do you see what wonderful details she's offered in this? She's named the toy that she was playing with a wobble bobble. I have no idea what it is, but I kind of see it as some kind of a really interesting, crazy looking contraption. And I can see her hitting her chin. In fact, I can kind of feel it myself. Can imagine what that might have felt like on the hardwood floor. Can really feel how hard that is. We maybe have had a similar experience, so I can certainly empathize, feel empathy for her. And on the bottom of my chin, the skin split open. I almost feel like ouchy about that. And then having to go to the emergency room, another wonderful detail. And she got stitches. And if anybody out there has ever had stitches before, you know that is very uncomfortable and can be a little painful. So this author, who I think might have been in second or third grade, so she's about your age, did a wonderful job of telling her story, and as if she were telling a friend her story, and offering wonderful details that help us empathize, help her reader feel empathy for her as she tells her story. So I love that. And then the next thing that she wrote was she was asked to imagine telling this story to actually to imagine a wonderful friend like Leonardo became to Sam, responding to her in empathy for what was happening to her in that moment when she hit her chin and had to go to the emergency room. This may or may not have happened. I think maybe it did. Maybe it was a big brother or a father who said, "Emily, are you okay? Do you need water? Grab my hand and go sit down by the window and breathe fresh air. Okay?" "Okay," I said. So again, this author is imagining somebody reacting with kindness and acting out of that empathy for her. And that was a wonderful, wonderful story. And she used dialogue, which is when a character is speaking to another character in the book. And you can see that she's used quotes, but she's also put these words in kind of a speech bubble, in a dialogue bubble. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to model this this kind of writing. Okay, so here is another wonderful story by another author from second or third grade. And as I read, listen for the details again of the story that this author is telling. And also notice how she's using a lot of dialogue. There are a couple of characters that are speaking to each other back and forth within this speech bubble. One night, I was watching TV. My mom said, "Let's go to the store." I said, "Okay." In the car, I asked my mom when we are going to South Dakota. She said, "About that. Me and my dad sold your horse." I was so sad. So as we read this again, she is really inspiring our reader empathy for through her words. We're really feeling for her in this time where she's been told that they're going to have to sell her horse, and it was kind of feels like it was told kind of, oh, by the way, and yet this is a really big deal for this author. So she wrote her second writing was again imagining telling somebody this story and talking about the empathy that was given to her as a result of telling this story. The next day, I went to my dad's house. I told my sister. She was sad for me. She said, "It's okay." So, again, a story about a really, really tough night, tough time that this author had, and imagining what a wonderful friend her sister was in this case to show her empathy after she told her story about her horse having to be sold. So using this as an example, the first part of this writing exercise is to think about a time when you felt really angry or sad or scared or upset or frustrated because things did not go the way you wanted or that you thought they would go. And maybe like Sam, a whole bunch of things just went wrong. And in the bottom right-hand corner, as you can see here in this picture, in the bottom right-hand corner of your paper, draw a picture of your face and show what you were feeling on your face, what you were feeling at that time. As you look at this, you can see she was really upset and in fact started crying. There are lots of tears coming down there. And then after you do your drawing, draw a big dialogue bubble or speech bubble like she took up this whole page, and draw it out from the drawing of your face. It can take up the whole paper if you want. And this is partly to give yourself enough space to tell the story that you want to tell and to offer as many details as you can. So then write about this time, this bad time that you experienced, as if you were telling a friend about it, like Sam told Leonardo. So that's the first part. And if that's all you do, great. You've told a story, and you've told it with details, and you've told it in a way that the reader can really feel what you were feeling. The reader can really feel empathy for you in that story. But if you have time, or maybe the next day, you can also do the second part, which is to imagine what a wonderful friend would say to you, showing you empathy. Now, maybe it did happen. Maybe somebody did offer you empathy. But if it didn't, imagine it. Imagine what a wonderful friend like Leonardo became to Sam. What a wonderful friend would say to you to show empathy, like a friend showed this writer. Follow the same steps as above, drawing your friend's face and maybe yours as well, and a big dialogue bubble, and then write what this wonderful friend says to you after you tell them what happened. Show how they express empathy through their words. So that's it for today. I hope you had a wonderful time writing and telling your stories. Maybe you had time to share with each other. That's another way that we can understand each other better and feel empathy for each other, is sharing our writing. And so I hope you had a chance to do that. But if you didn't, take some time today. Maybe grab a friend and read your story to them. Or maybe when you get home, tell your story to a brother or a sister or a mom or a dad or a neighbor. And take the time to do that. And also remember that empathy is not just something that we feel for each other, that we imagine what each other is feeling, but also that empathy is something that inspires us to act with kindness. And so maybe as you go about the rest of your day, be on the lookout for a way that you can use your power of empathy to imagine what another is thinking and feeling, and then to act with kindness. And it might just be saying, it's okay, or just listening to their story with empathy. That's enough. That's more than enough. So we have one more time together, and I'm excited about the book that we're going to read. Just a little preview here. It's called Fireflies. And we're going to talk about how empathy isn't just about a power that we use with other human beings, but in fact, that we can use empathy with all living beings in nature and otherwise. So I'll see you next time, and take care. And remember to use your superpower, empathy.